The anime starts with a crazy perv saying he'll only go out with this chick if she pays for their outing. He says that if she's not going to make a PIX transfer, he's open to another form of payment. If you catch my drift. As soon as she hears this, the chick tries to land a kick right to his face, but the dude blocks the kick and throws her to the ground like she's nothing. He starts cursing at her, saying he's not going out with a girl who doesn't have money and can't give him anything. The dude turns his back on her, and she starts cursing him out in every way possible. While her friends are mocking her, she says she deserved to be comforted because he was her first boyfriend. When one of her friends says she had already warned her not to get involved with that guy, she says he seemed like the kind of guy she likes. As soon as the girls start mocking her, she freaks out, saying she loves guys like Ken Takakura. They tell her it's better for her to give up, that guys like that are extinct from this world. After being upset for the rest of the class, she starts wondering if she'll ever meet a real man. She says she just wanted someone to cheer her up, and she asks why the world is so cruel. When the jerks are about to throw a magnet at the nerd's head, they notice that chick sitting with him. While they tremble in fear of this girl, she takes a look at his book and says it's beyond pathetic. She leaves, abandoning him, saying this world is just full of scumbags. She says she's tired of the boredom and that she just wants someone to vent to. Then that nerd says she's in love. She asks if he's lost his mind, and he says there's no other reason for a girl like her to talk to him. The girl says he's nuts and that she's not trying to be his friend. Suddenly, he interrupts her and says that the President of the United States has already visited Mars. When he asks if she's into that sort of thing, she says she doesn't believe in this alien stuff. He says it's not just UFOs, it's an unidentified phenomenon. She tells him he's starting to annoy her, but he keeps going on about how they've admitted that UFOs are real. He says this news is so serious that even Japan is going to get involved in this space war. The girl tries to ignore him, but he keeps following her, explaining more events. She tells him to shut up and says she's out of patience because she just got dumped, and that his nerdy attitude is so irritating, which is why he doesn't have any friends. After breaking the guy's heart, she turns her back on him and tells him to pretend he never met her. She realizes she went a bit too far and apologizes for speaking to him that way. When she decides to give him the magazine, she says that even though she doesn't believe in aliens, she still believes in ghosts. He starts laughing at her, saying it's obvious that ghosts don't exist. She gets pissed off at him and asks how he had the nerve to say that right after she confided in him. Turns out the nerd wasn't as dumb as he seemed. As they start arguing, she says her grandmother was a medium. She says her grandma not only exorcised ghosts but also dealt with lots of possessed people writhing around. The nerd says that sounds more like someone needing medical help and that it doesn't prove the existence of ghosts. The girl gets furious with him and asks if he's ever seen a UFO in his life. He says it's a leap in logic and asks if she's stupid. While they continue arguing, a heavily made-up girl appears and says it looks like her friend is into nerds now. After the argument, she ends up proposing a bet to prove that ghosts exist, but in return, he'd have to become her slave. He says he'll prove to her once and for all that ETs exist, and after that, she'll become his assistant. When night falls, she finds herself in a completely creepy hospital. She says this place is so spooky and asks how a place like this could be an alien base. While walking through the hospital, he says that if she goes up to the roof of this hospital and calls for a UFO, she'll end up getting abducted. She asks what he's trying to say, and the nerd says she'll end up being kidnapped and turned into an experiment for these aliens. The girl asks how he knows this and if he's ever been abducted before. He says it's not impossible, considering most abducted people have their memories erased. She asks if he's ever seen a UFO, and he says whether he has or not isn't the most important thing to talk about. She asks how his experience has been, and the guy says he's already reached a spiritual level. He starts freaking out and says he'll prove once and for all that ghosts don't really exist. The girl asks if he's scared and says just so he knows, people always say ghosts appear in this place. Suddenly, he starts hearing a strange noise and begins chanting 5 hymns from the harp to try and ward off the negative energy. When the girl says shouting in this place is the most dangerous thing to do, he starts freaking out even more. He asks her if she's really seen a ghost, but when she says no, he starts wondering how she could be so sure if she's never seen one. She mocks him, and he starts yelling on the phone that it's absurd for her to believe in something she's never seen. She says it's not absurd when you have a grandmother who deals with spirits. And since she grew up without her parents, she trusted her grandmother's words a lot. The nerd says he's sorry for her loss, and she asks why he suddenly got all soft like that. Then she starts explaining that her family is beyond bizarre. Every time she left the house, she was forced to do a ritual before going out. And since she had to do it all the way to school, the boys always made fun of her for having to perform that ritual. She says that if she didn't do it, her grandmother would get very angry with her, but the worst part of the story is that the boy she liked also made fun of her. At that moment, she felt so much hatred towards her grandmother that she even said some harsh things to her. After that, she spent years without talking to her and never did it again to avoid being humiliated. What she hated most wasn't the fact that the boy she liked teased her, but seeing people mocking her family. Suddenly, her grandmother appears, and she says she always loved her and respected her work, which seemed special. And above all, she acknowledged that her grandmother had taken care of her when she was alone. After telling a touching story explaining why she believes in ghosts, She asks him why he believes in aliens. He says it's not that important, and he doesn't have a specific reason to believe in those things. The girl says it seems like he's more outgoing when talking on the phone. When he says it's easier to talk on the phone, he suddenly notices a trail of bloody footprints. Suddenly, when he looks back, an old hag says she'll let him enjoy her body if he lets her take his banana. The nerd starts running like the Flash, and the girl tells him he can't run in that place. While he's panicking, he tries to convince himself that ghosts don't exist and that it's just an old perv. But what he didn't know is that if the old hag caught up with him, he'd be cursed right away. As soon as the hag goes after him, he starts screaming like a lunatic, and the girl freaks out trying to help him. When she starts running towards him, the lights begin flickering, and 3 aliens appear in front of her. She even tries to escape from them, but unfortunately, the creeps manage to grab her. Suddenly, she opens her eyes and finds herself in the weird situation that these blockheads put her in. They say they're from the planet Serpo and that she doesn't need to be afraid of friendly aliens like them. She says friendly people wouldn't leave her in this state and asks where her clothes are. The blockhead alien tells her to relax and that they took perfect care of her belongings. She orders these idiots to let her go and tells them to get her stuff back. The alien says that since his race consists only of males, they can only reproduce using clones. Another blockhead says that since identical units can't reproduce, they needed to copy the bananas of humans. The girl doesn't understand anything, and they say that after mating with her, her body will serve as an experiment for them. She starts freaking out and says she's not losing her purity like this since she's saved herself for years for the love of her life. When the aliens stick something on her forehead, they start using some sort of telekinesis to control her brain waves. As she starts writhing, the pervy alien wonders how she's managing to resist their power. Suddenly, her phone rings, and when the big guy answers, he immediately gets kicked in the face to wake him up. That old perv comes out of the phone and uses a forbidden jutsu on that alien creep. The nerd apologizes to her and says that unfortunately, Granny Turbo had cursed him. As she asks him to help her, the blockhead alien says that the technology he used is unknown even on their planet. He says he can't control himself. Then the banana-obsessed old hag appears again, and Momo has no idea what's going on. The big guy says that humans weren't allowed in this place, and when he reveals his true identity, he says he's going to grab the nerd's banana for himself. Suddenly, an insane fight starts, and the alien says that these moves were too fast for him. The horny old lady goes after him and says she won't let any banana escape from her reach. The big guy attacks her, sending her flying, and says it's time for him to pass his banana as an experiment for them. He says he'll give everything that's needed and that his dream has always been to see real aliens. And since he never had friends, he always thought the aliens could be his friends. He starts having a flashback, saying he always called the UFOs when he was a child, but unfortunately, they never showed up for him. And while everyone made fun of him and didn't acknowledge his existence, Momo was the only one who chose to protect him. He starts getting pissed off and says he's going to take down anyone who dares touch her, and if necessary, he'd choose to become a monster just to protect her. Mina tells him to keep it up, and the horny alien immediately shoots him in the face. The big guy says they can't be friends with violent people like him, and that the only thing they needed was women instead of men. While the alien was using his hypnosis on her, she starts remembering when her grandma told her to focus all her Ki to get rid of any problem, and that she just needed to put strength in her belly and imagine the Ki flowing inside her head. But as soon as she remembered when everyone made fun of her, she said her grandma was a fake medium, and that she would never do that crap again. When the flashback ends, she starts focusing her energy and begins exploding everything around her. The nerd asks if she had superpowers, and she says she didn't even know that. While the alien starts wondering what was going on, Momo begins to recognize that her grandma was indeed a true medium. She thanks her grandma and delivers a huge kick to the alien's face. And the kick was so powerful that she sent him straight to Disney. As soon as a UFO shows up, she gets desperate looking for the nerd. And when he appears, it was that horny old lady who had taken control. When Mina focuses her energy on the old lady, something unprecedented happens. She asks why he was writhing if Turbo Grandma had already left his body. But it turns out that since she stole the boy's jabliscudo, the curse would remain active as long as she had it. The old lady says she will only return his banana if they have the courage to show up in the tunnel once again. Momo starts freaking out and asks the old lady to give back his downstairs. Suddenly, the ship starts going out of control and ends up crashing, blowing up the entire street. After finally getting out of that place, she says now she truly believes in aliens. And the nerd says that since he lost his jabliscudo, it's impossible for him not to believe in ghosts now. Mina says that if she doesn't keep using her Ki, it's certain that he'll lose control once again. And just for a change, she didn't just lose her clothes, but also her wallet and phone. When he asks how to get rid of this curse, she says the only way for that to happen is by beating the crap out of Turbo Grandma. He says he's going to deal with that expired passion fruit and tells her to put on his clothes. After saying that it was his fault, he says he can't let her get involved in this kind of thing. She says it would be better if he didn't go alone since they went through this crazy experience together. The nerd is happy to see that she cares about him, and she tells him to hurry up and put on his clothes. He says he's kind of clumsy and that she should wear these clothes instead, or he won't be able to speak properly. At that moment, her heart starts racing, and she starts wondering why it felt like he had just said one of Ken Takakura's lines. When she tries to change the subject by asking his name, he says his name is Ken Takakura. And as soon as she hears that, she can't believe he has the same name as the guy she admires so much. My partner, this anime is way too crazy. I think the author of this work snorted 3 kilos of grape tang when he was making this anime. That's IT. My partner, this video is coming to an end, and if you want me to bring the next episode, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notifications so you'll know when this crazy masterpiece continues. Alright? Thanks for watching. Much love, and see you next time.
First class ticket to the top, no limit. I don't play no gimmicks. I'ma take you to the clinic. If you want a taste, come at me and you will be replaced. They won't find a trace of you anywhere around.